"Miss Jones!" barked a voice at my back, and I started turning about. Mrs. Quinn, chief nurse of the newly christened Tranquility at Idling Recovery Hospital, stood behind me, in her wimple and somehow always spotless white frock, scowling. We'd met only 2 days ago, and it seemed she was always scowling, at me at least. "Are you here to help, or are you rather more a tourist?" I forced a neutral tone. "To help, Mum." "Then do so. You may take this wheelchair to Nurse O'Donnell over there and assist her with that young man." Unlike me, Nurse O'Donnell, call me Deirdre, was a real nurse, probably in her late 30s. She had hazel eyes and a round face and a quick, polished smile, which she directed at me as I walked up to join her at the back of the latest truck. "Emma!" "Eleanor," I corrected her, but she wasn't listening, focused instead on the wounded man trying to ease out of the truck on only one working leg. The other was encased from hip to toes in a plaster cast. "Lovely. Let's have you escort this gentleman to the induction room, eh?" Induction room was the military's term for the front parlour, which was by far the largest chamber on the main floor besides the dining room. It had been transformed from a hideous black and white room with a piano into a hideous black and white room with rows of beds and chairs and portable privacy curtains, and the piano, which had been pushed back against a wall since it was too large to fit through any of the doorways. It seemed the Duke had had the parlour constructed around it. "Here you go then, sir. Off with our Miss Ella. She'll take fine care of you. Get you settled in." I offered a smile to the injured man, who offered a wan smile back. "Very kind of you, Emma, Eleanor, Ella," he said, proving that at least someone had been paying attention. "My pleasure," I replied. I rolled the wheelchair into position behind him, then leaned in close to help him sit. It was hard not to retch. Like a lot of the wounded, he stank, really stank, of something elusive yet familiar, something that reminded me of the grimy butcher's alley a block from the orphanage, green bottleflies swarming over skinned animals, hot, rotting meat. I wheeled him into the manor. The days went on like that. Since I had no true nursing experience, I was relegated to the least important tasks, most of which involved cleaning things, or fetching things, or relaying messages from one part of the mansion to another. But by the end of each day, I retreated into my bedroom with a sense of weary, guilty relief. And no matter how I scrubbed, I could not rid myself of the dreadful meat smell. I tried scented soaps, borrowed perfume from Deirdre, no use. It was always there. By the 11th day, I was beginning to wonder if I shouldn't have gone to Calendar after all. Armand was busy with his new role as Lord of the Manor, but it seemed to me he was more of a spectre haunting it than an actual person. We'd not spoken since the morning at the piano. Whenever I saw him now, it was always from a distance, at the top of a flight of stairs or down long, gloomy hallways. He remained surrounded by others, the lone figure dressed in black or grey instead of khaki. They were all men with strict schedules and lives to save. I barely warranted a glance from any of them. I'd smoked to his bedchamber once since everyone else had arrived, only once. I'd turned to girl beside his bed and looked down at him sleeping, hoping he'd wake, hoping for some stupid reason that I wouldn't have to put my hand on him for him to wake. I'd read somewhere that people always appear peaceful in their sleep. All the cares and worries of the day slipped away, temporarily forgotten, or buried beneath dreams. Armand did not look peaceful. He looked shadowed, stark. He looked much like the dragon boy I'd glimpsed weeks ago in the forest, when he'd lit that lantern and offered me caviar and trouble. Out of curiosity, I leaned over him, inhaled. I smelled only soap and wine and him. Hungry? He'd asked me that night in the forest, watching me with that dark dragon look. Hungry? I realized, unsettled, that I was. A flicker, a small stirring of my blood, nothing like what I'd felt with Jessie.